Welcome to the Mariah Jean Fit YouTube channel. I'm Coach Mariah. Make sure you like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos as much as possible so we can reach a broader audience. We appreciate your support and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to another vlog on YouTube and podcast on Spotify by the Fit Minds podcast. Coach Mariah here. Happy Valentine's Day. I am doing a vlog on Valentine's Day showing you some love on V-Day. I don't know whether you are single, in a relationship, I don't care. But if you're listening to this podcast, it is a form of self-love to absorb information that helps you become a better person. So why not? Okay, today we're going to tackle the topic of FOMO, or fear of missing out. Now, this vlog is going to be fairly similar to, I guess, the comparing yourself to others vlog slash podcast, but there's going to be a few points of difference in that this particular type of feeling or experience I see quite often with physique competitors and even in general people who engage in a fitness journey themselves, and they're finding that they feel like they're just constantly missing out on the grass being greener on the other side of the fence. You know, they might be missing parties, they might be missing social occasions, or certainly maybe feeling like that they're not able to eat as many of the foods that they were previously. And FOMO can really apply to lots of different areas of your life. So it's not just about food and experiences related to comp prep or health journeys, but certainly even looking at other people's careers, travel, life experiences, and seeing what other people are doing and wanting to be doing that. Or certainly feeling like you've been left out of a social situation as well, or, just basically looking from the outside in to other people's experiences, wanting to be in their shoes, basically. So generally it's experienced typically by the age group of 16 to 35. It is a form of jealousy. So if you are listening to this vlog and podcast, good on you for if you are addressing some jealousy issues you might have deep-seated. No one knows you're listening to it. I don't know, and I don't see the specific listeners. I only see my listener count. So don't feel like listening to this is going to, not personally attacking anybody. And certainly, if you want to listen to this, maybe if you've got someone in your life you think that often kind of complains and is worried about FOMO, it might apply to being able to help them, come from a better position in their life and their attitude and perspective. And that's a lot of my vlogs and podcasts is about changing your attitude and your perspective. It's not necessarily about drastically changing who you are to your core, but certainly the way that you see things and the way that you do things so that you can experience life to the fullest. I have been on the end of somebody who, when I was much younger, I did get a lot of FOMO. Being a kid who grew up with not much, and I mean not much as in we really weren't well off. If you've listened to any of my other podcasts, you'd know that I came from a really low socioeconomic background. And now I would be considered a high income earner doing what I do, which I love. But when I was younger, I was really worried about what everyone else was doing and getting. It was a very strong complex that I had as a kid, which, if someone had got new bikes or they might have new uniforms or brand new shoes, or, somebody might, for example, have been really good at shot put and I wasn't. It often pushed me to try and be good at absolutely everything, which was not a bad thing, I suppose, but it can bring out the perfectionist in us. So fear of missing out will often see that you're chasing too many things at once, too many experiences at once, and trying to be too many different types of people at once, without actually considering the sacrifices required to achieve each one of those goals and how it would impact your mental health, how it's going to impact your quality of life, etc. And certainly not really thinking about maybe I do need to go for a prolonged period of time with or without something if I actually want the complete opposite of that. So anyway, this might sound a little bit confusing, but basically it revolves around believing that your current set of circumstances or your life does not allow you to enjoy other pleasurable experiences and or social occasions, or it could literally just be life experiences itself. So it could be your career, it could be, comp prep, it could be, I could be walking down the street and somebody looks at me and is, I wish I was as fit as her, I wish I had a good looking fiance like her, So it's kind of that comparing yourself to others, but also it's almost like wanting to be doing what they're doing. You might see someone doing CrossFit and you go, I wish I was as skilled as that, really wish I could, smack a barbell above my head that quickly. And if it comes from a position of, yeah, actually I would love doing that, looks fun, that looks like something I would enjoy, sure. But if it's coming from a position of just wanting to be in the other person's shoes because you've got this deep-seated, envy and jealousy, very difficult to identify it. But freeing yourself from it will often actually allow you to actually get to know yourself, what you really want for yourself, and stop you from trying to influence other people to be exactly like you as well. So that's one thing I learned to stop doing, even as a coach. I often hear from people outside of my coaching services actually, oh, you'd probably really judge me on my nutrition. You probably eat a lot cleaner than I do. And people who literally, I don't even know them, they would walk up to me and they go, oh, you're a lot fitter than I am. And, I wouldn't want to tell you what I have for breakfast. And I'm like, I don't fucking care. Actually, I don't fucking care. I don't care. I'm not even angry about it. I don't care. I don't care. Unless someone comes to me for help, I really don't have any concern with other people's lives. And unless you're directly harming somebody else who I care about, or maybe somebody who's vulnerable, I can't be bothered with it. So I don't spend a lot of time now in a position looking at other people's lives, thinking, oh God, I wish I was doing that. I wish I was out partying, or I wish I was, I don't know, traveling the world, because if I wanted to be traveling the world, I just would be. Right now, I'm happy where I am, happy where I live, I'm content, and I've learned how to follow the path of what I actually want to do with my life instead of deviating based on what everyone else is doing. So FOMO hits you like a ton of bricks. It can hit you quite often. What does FOMO look like? What are some examples of what FOMO could look like from the perspective of somebody who might be experiencing it? Here are some of the signs that you might need to look out for if you feel this may apply to you. So, looking at the lives of others on social media or in your close social network or family circles and believing that they have a better life or better life experiences than you, okay? That you are not able to engage in such experiences or social occasions, events, life growth and career changes. You just, for some reason, think that that's not you and you can't do it, and you wish it was you and you're kind of really jealous and it's boiling inside you. Very similar to the comparing yourself to others vlog, as I mentioned, but it might look like reducing your own set of standards, your own morals and your own life choices and decisions to something that is lesser or less enjoyable than that of somebody else, right? So it all comes back to that whole, what I'm doing isn't as fun as what they're doing type of concept, right? Oh, I've got to go to the gym every single day and this person's going to salsa classes. Oh, that looks so much, it's not so much more fun than going to the gym. I'm sure they've stepped on someone's toes. They've had someone else step on their toes. Much of this is really having a very, I suppose, a closed off view and mindset towards what other people are doing in their lives and comparing yourself and putting yourself down in comparison to what they're doing, and feeling guilty as well for what you're doing versus what they're doing. For example, you might be in the middle of a competition prep. I know a lot of my clients listen to my vlogs, so I love this. And you might be invited to a social event that you didn't think you could go to. The most successful preps I've seen are where people either A, decide I'm not going to any social events at all because I don't like making other people feel uncomfortable. I don't like those conversations that people have with me and they often try to influence me and it's just uncomfortable. I don't like it. I'm one of those people. In comp prep, ask all my friends. I'm a freaking hermit, okay? They know, they're fine with it. They're like, oh, she's gone for 5 to 6 months. I'll talk to her on the phone. It's all good. If my friends weren't okay with that, I probably wouldn't have them as friends. I know it sounds weird, but I can be picky and choosy as to who is in my friendship circle. A lot of them I like to talk to over text message, so it's much easier for me to communicate with them. And I'm totally fine doing distance, and so are they. Now, often I will hang out with my friends and do things that I can do in prep, like going for a walk. But it really does come down to this idea that people tend to feel shitty because they feel like they can't eat the foods at the event, that they are going to be pressured to eat what everyone else is eating, or you're not consuming what they're consuming or drinking on the occasion. And even so, if you do have a special event coming up, right, and you're thinking to yourself, maybe I'm going to avoid it, maybe I'll go to it. I honestly do encourage going to these events, because if you do go to them, you'll experience some pressures from some people and maybe not from others. But usually the ones who are trying to pressure you and peer pressure you or ask lots of questions and really poke and prod you about your prep are often doing that just to make themselves feel better about themselves, okay? So generally, it says a little bit more about them than it does about you. If you put up your boundaries with someone and say, look, you know what? I'm okay, I don't need to eat that food, it's all good. And they go, why aren't you eating? It's like, I've already eaten, or, whatever type of answer. You don't even need to justify them to them that you're in prep. Imagine if you weren't in prep and you just eaten a meal before you'd gone to a party. And there's these people here trying to force feed you. Okay, go on, have something to eat. Oh, that is just literally them trying to make themselves feel normal and less awkward. Don't worry about it. Just ignore it. Literally brush it off. So that's the advice I have to comp prep people, because there's this so common in prep where people really question what you're doing, and yeah, we're a little bit crazy, but at the end of the day, it's what we love doing, and we're not going to stop doing it. So, good luck to those who try and convince us. So obviously, you'd spend the whole time thinking about the fact that you can't eat what everyone else is eating, okay, and you might experience feelings of shame, sadness, even feelings that you may be left out of the situation or worse off than other people, because of the decisions that you've made to be in comp prep or to do whatever you're doing, right? So it might be that you are, I don't know, it could be anything. You could be trialing for an Olympic swim team. You might have a specific diet for that. You may have allergies. There's lots of different instances and scenarios that this would apply to. It really, it's not just about people who make life decisions, but also people who might have disabilities. They might have a little bit of FOMO, which is completely understandable if they can't do some things that they're not physically able to. But, it really is that in these situations, some people have choices as to what they want to do in life. Some people don't. But this intense feeling really revolves around, I wish I was doing what someone else is doing. I wish I could do exactly the same thing someone else is doing. And I will address later on, because obviously having a disability and choosing not to do something are two very different things. But there is one, actually quite a few, it kind of revolves around the same idea, simple way of ridding ourselves of this feeling of someone else's life is something that we're missing out on. Someone else's experiences is something that we're missing out on, and really get rid of those really intense, anxious, feelings of guilt and jealousy and resentment. So the feelings are incredibly normal and fairly common, okay? Like, I think most people listening to this podcast will be able to say at some given point in time in their life, that they will have gone through this. They'll have looked at something on social media, whether it be a video or whether it be a photo or whether it be an announcement. Someone might be announcing one that's actually really common and not really spoken about, which definitely applies to me currently because, personally I'm pretty open with this stuff, is seeing things like pregnancies pop up on social media. Now, I'm not looking for unsolicited advice on how to get pregnant, but sometimes I do get the feeling of, it's not quite happened yet. And that can bite you in the ass, because you can make all these assumptions about getting pregnant and having children that might be incredibly wonderful, which they are. There's all these lovely things. But there's also no information. You don't have any information as to how long they were trying to get pregnant for, right? You don't have any information as to what their life circumstances are, what their finances look like, whether they're even, able to support a child at this current point in time. And very quickly we can start to already, have this bias attached to, but I want to have that. But she's with child and I haven't got that yet. Okay, so it can be this kind of constant fascination with having what we don't have and having the opposite of what we currently have. So there can be thoughts which cause high levels of anxiety and put pressure on us to change our goals swiftly or change our perspective swiftly, and change who we are as human beings fundamentally based on what everyone else is doing. So it's not actually based on our core beliefs and what we are driven to do ourselves internally, but it's all externally driven. So because somebody else has displayed a level of happiness doing so, with anything, it could be they might be a DJ, and they might be stoked and living the best life. We then almost have this, we're drawn to it, this idea that they've got a better life than us, that, I wish I was a DJ, or I wish I was doing that and not, at home feeding the baby. So there you go. There's another perspective where a person who may have a child may be looking at somebody else's life, wishing that they had their life or that they were doing what they're doing instead. So you can literally have it you can experience FOMO from both sides of any type of scenario. It's wild. So the concept of FOMO, as I said, revolves around the idea that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. Growing up, my stepfather had this incredible saying, the grass ain't greener on the other side of the fence. And I think it got me through some of the hardest times of my childhood where I would see the grass was definitely greener on the other side of the fence, where kids would have parties and they would have, the birthday bags that people take home, the party bags, and we couldn't afford them. And there were lots of things I honestly did not have as a child, which I think most people would think would be a given growing up in Australia. That you were just entitled to have these things and it was very normal. But growing up, I had a pretty strict upbringing, and from a dietary perspective, and even so with finances, they were really tight. So there were a lot of things that I did miss out on, and my stepfather got me through because he'd remind me, we've got chickens in the backyard that make our own eggs, and you have the ability to go in, plant anything in the backyard that you want to, and you can do art whenever you want to. And it's true, I had opportunities to be more creative as a child, to spend more time with myself, to learn how to grow by myself. And maybe some other kids didn't have this opportunity because maybe they were busy doing other things. So again, it's all a matter of perspective. And this is why I really love that saying, because the grass can be greener on the other side of the fence in patches. And you then forget to look down and look at your own grass, maybe water it and focus on what you're doing. Because if you hop on to the other side and do exactly the same thing you were doing previously, you can often see that you will, still do the same thing. You'll still be envious of what the other person is doing, back in your old world type of thing. It seems that no matter what a person might be doing at any given point in time in their life, or the decisions they have made in their lives, that they simply want a complete opposite, as I mentioned, or potentially what others have, this constant fascination with needing to do what others are doing. You might see someone traveling Greece and think, I haven't been there, I want to go to Greece. It's okay to want to go to Greece, it's okay to travel. But why are you doing it? Just because you saw a video on Instagram and you saw how happy some girl was and you thought, oh my God, that made her happy, it might make me happy too. This is where we start to relate other people's experiences and express joy with what we might think we might get joy from. And it can be dangerous, it can be really beneficial because it can help us set goals, right? So if we see someone competing and we go, that's really inspiring, I'd love to achieve that. Awesome, no worries. It comes from a position of actually being inspired and actually wanting to compete. If you say to yourself, I want to compete because she looks really happy and she's got a great body and I want to be just like her, and everyone's paying her attention and they should be paying me attention. No one calls, me fit and no one says nice things about me. That's where we get it, this FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. I wish I was doing this because that person looks really happy doing it and I want what they've got and I want to be happy like them because I'm apparently not happy now. So it's a very fine line between having goals and aspirations and being inspired and basically building your life off of bitterness. So a great example of this could possibly be seen for the recent Valentine's Day today, whereby people may see couples posting romantic photos or videos together, okay? Giving each other gifts, etc. And as a result, this may incite some bitterness and feelings of missing out or jealousy from those who do not experience it. Maybe they're single, maybe their partner doesn't believe in Valentine's Day, or maybe they lost their partner and, they haven't moved on from that, or, even really got past that grief, because you don't ever move on from losing a partner. But, I was actually scrolling through, because it's like an experiment. Years ago, prior to really flipping my life around, when I was really mentally unwell around the age of 20, I was pretty much in and out of, mental health issues all the way through my childhood and all the way into my early 20s. And I really started to shift that around my mid-20s, right? And this was all early to mid-20s I started to shift, and when I was recovering from anorexia. And this was all because I chose to, right? This was, honestly, hand on heart, I chose to get better. I chose to recover. I chose a better life. I used to watch the Facebook statuses that I made years ago, and it would come up in my memories of things I had said in my Facebook statuses. We all used to make Facebook statuses. If you're a 90s kid, it was definitely a thing, and even so, anyone who might still do Facebook statuses, and Probably prior to about 25, my statuses were really bitter. Especially on Valentine's Day, it was like, ugh, Valentine's Day, bar humbug. And I would get really cranky at all sorts of things, seeing loved up couples, and I would say really bitter, nasty things like, you don't need to do that in public, or, I'm just going to hide for the day and I'm going to cuddle my dog, or whatever it was that seemed to almost take away from other people's happiness, right? And deep down, it was when I was single. I was so jealous. I was missing out. Absolutely, it was hurting me. I think that it is possible to reflect upon that type of behavior and really nip it in the bud. And you don't need to be in a relationship to be happy on Valentine's Day. Because as the years went on and I started to do a bit of self-development and self-growth, around the age of 23, 24, 25, I was still single. I'd recently left a pretty violent relationship, and I was in and out of that even up until when I was 27 or so. But I was there for a prolonged period of time without a Valentine, and I was single. And I remember that my perspective changed as the years progressed, because I started to see that it was okay to be happy for other people's happiness, and that practicing that actually started to heal that gaping hole inside me that seemed to never be closed over. And so instead of complaining about Valentine's Day and complaining about how commercialized it is, and it is a day that, much like Christmas, right? It's no different to Christmas. It's no different to New Year's. It's really no different to birthdays either. If you really think about it, all of this stuff, all of these days that are related to sentimental ideas and concepts, anniversaries, they're all commercialized. They're all days where companies can make money from you, sure. But I mean, even the clothes you wear, companies make money from you. You dye your hair, companies make money from you. The furniture that you pick for your house, companies make money from you. So having a day where people buy each other random crap like flowers and fluffy toys, being a tradition is not going to hurt anybody. It's certainly not going to hurt you. And if they like that to celebrate love between one another, and it's just another day they can do that, why not? There's nothing hurting anybody doing that. I even said that as a single person. So this whole FOMO concept, and I'll come back around to it, can come from deep jealousy, and often we can then project those feelings onto other people through feelings of hatred, anger, resentment, and it can come out as pretty bitter, or you can come out as desperately trying to chase that thing that the other person has or is doing, right? So that doesn't take away from the fact that loneliness and difficulty as a single person, or certainly finding yourself again, because I've been there, trust me, I have been there. I think it's weird. People think that people in relationships must just be in happy la la relationship land and they haven't been single before. I was single on and off for about, actually most of my life from age 15. None of my relationships really lasted any longer than 6 months, and there would be big gaps in between. There was one there for about 1.5 years, I think, when I was much younger, which I did very well with. But other than that, I couldn't sustain relationships, and I've been there. I've been on both sides of the fence. I can tell you there's benefits to being single and there's benefits to being in a relationship. But it doesn't take away from the fact that people who are single, who've lost their partners, of course they're going to feel a little bit of pain on Valentine's Day. But as I'll move on into the next part of how to cope with FOMO and what to do, there are ways that you can actually start to heal yourself from your anger and bitterness and hatred towards other people's happiness, no matter what it looks like. If someone wants to celebrate Christmas, if someone wants to celebrate, Easter, not going to hurt you doing that, something they want to do. So sometimes people might attack other people, in that process as well. They feel like they're missing out on fun or positive feelings associated with other people's experiences. And it's honestly quite an internal process. It's certainly not often communicated to other people, but it can be. So on the opposite side, it might look like a person who, is missing what you have, right? So if you think about it in reverse, if you're missing what they've got, they might be missing what you've got. And you never really think of it that way. And it does follow this pattern, a very black and white perspective of life, doesn't it? You're kind of seeing this trend here. It's like either this or that, this or that, this or that. And where I am is shit and this is really good. And where I am is shit and this is really good. And maybe this person's thinking where I am is shit and this is really good. So it's kind of like, almost like wanting to bat for the other team. And I don't mean that in a sexual sense. But it's like wanting to bat for the other team constantly, but you only just got over to the other side, you only just got on the other team. Like, it's like wanting to own a house, but then wanting to travel the world at the same time. And maybe that's possible. It is entirely possible to do both of those things. Sure, there are people who have that. Very difficult to do both of those things at the same time. But it's this constant back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, black and white thinking, not actually thinking about where you are now. So you can see how it then trends towards this internal jealousy, resentment, disappointment, bitterness. And I'm going to be completely honest, when I interact with people who are like this, who practice these feelings of FOMO and, no one invited me to the party and I feel left out and I'm really hard done by and, I wish I had that career and I wish I was as talented as you. I hear this a lot. And this is not just a comparison thing, but it's like people constantly do this. I wish I had what somebody else has. I wish I could travel the world. I wish I had a child and I wish I could conceive. And trust me, it doesn't take away from people's pain. Coming from someone who personally experiences some of this pain herself. It doesn't help you to look at other people's lives, continuously wishing, resenting, becoming bitter and wound up in that cycle, which can be just as bad as comparing yourself to other people and putting them above you, and certainly thinking that their life is just dandy and doesn't have any fault at all. So from an inner monologue or dialogue with others, it may even sound like, I wish I was there instead of being stuck here. Or I wish I had chosen that career instead of what I chose. Even possibly when looking at somebody else traveling the world, as I mentioned, or even looking at someone attending an event, maybe wearing a nice dress or an outfit, wishing you could be like them, having a thriving social life and smart fashion choices like they do. It's that I wish I was like that person and doing everything that that person is doing and that everything I'm doing must be wrong. FOMO is closely related to comparing yourself to others, as I mentioned, but what probably it comes from more so is this perspective of directly disliking where you currently are, right? So it's not just about comparing yourself to others and small things and nitpicking and not actually thinking about the bigger picture, but you're not even happy with where you are, and you can't even be happy with where you are if you're constantly worried about what you're missing out on that isn't what you're doing, okay? And what you currently have in comparison to literally anything else but what you currently have, and anything else but your life. Finding that you have a strong desire to shift and change from where you are constantly, even if you are, choosing to do something with your life and, how you were choosing to live your life, it had a strong purpose. So it's like you might have been on this clear path to building a business by yourself, and all of a sudden you see someone doing really well with crypto and you go, shit, I need to do that. That guy's made millions. I need to do crypto. And it's like, hold on, you've just spent months and years building a business and now you think you need to go and do the thing the other person is doing because you're scared you're going to miss out on the crypto money. See that chopping and changing and bouncing constantly. And what's interesting is I've seen people do this with their own goals. Even in relationships, chopping and changing, thinking that another relationship is going to be better than their current one because the grass is greener, and they wish they had what that person has in that relationship, and they wish that, this person does what this current partner doesn't do. And this just starts this constant cycle of what I currently have is not good enough. I'm not willing to work on what I currently have. I'm not willing to keep going with what I have kept going with. I get asked often from people, how did you get to the position where you are, where you're a six-figure income earner, business owner, well and truly six figures, by myself? How'd you get there? It's like, it must just seem like it happened overnight. It's been 5 or 6 years. I started from the bottom, literally, with what I was trying to do. I didn't stop. I didn't give up on the way and try and start a new job. I didn't think that it wasn't going to work, and I didn't look at other people's lives and careers and think, I'd rather be doing that. So those who experience FOMO also find that they're easily influenced in the direction of their friends or family in the way of peer pressure. All right, if that's you, stop it. That's honestly something we did as kids. We don't need to do it anymore. It's a lesson learned. In that, if somebody verbally expresses to you, that they shouldn't be doing, so you shouldn't be doing what they're doing. So if you're at a party, and it might be someone, you might be in comp prep, or you might be wanting to travel and you're wanting to save money, so you're not spending any money. And you might have said to them, hey, I didn't want to spend any money on alcohol tonight, or, it might even be that you don't want to go out partying on the weekend. You might not even be in comp prep. I don't really want to spend money, or I don't really want to drink alcohol. I'm trying to watch my, intake at the moment, whatever it might be. And someone has literally said to you, why are you doing that? But why are you doing that? But why'd you choose to do that? That's a bit weird. And so they peer pressure you into doing what they're doing, right? And they make you feel as though you should be doing what they're doing. So they actually push the feelings of FOMO onto you. So this is not okay. If someone does that to you, their maturity levels are at an all-time low. And I'm going to say that to anyone who has done it to other people before. Do not pressure other people into doing what you're doing just so they can be a part of what you're doing. I would never say to anybody, hey, you should be comp prep, do comp prep, or you should be a coach. Like, unless they actually want to be a coach, unless they look like they want to compete, I could probably give the idea to them. And if they say, yeah, I'd love to do that, sure, but I would never put them in a position where their current lifestyle looks nothing like that and try to pressure them into making those choices. I don't think it actually benefits me in any single way possible to do that to somebody, to pressure somebody into making decisions they didn't want to make. So these people might want you to join them in another activity that they might be, wanting you to fold into. And so if you give in to FOMO, you will fold easily, right? You'll have this feeling like you're being left out if you don't do it. And here's the newsflash: a supportive network will understand and respect your boundaries and everything that you want to do with your life, okay? So if that does not necessarily involve them, a mature-minded person will accept this and be okay with the fact that you do not have to assimilate with them. If you start playing guitar and your best mate doesn't know how to play guitar, your best mate should be saying, that's awesome, that's epic, how are your guitar lessons going? Even if they can't play, even if they don't come to your guitar lessons, even if it consumes more of your time than they might want it to. As long as you're happy, that's really all that matters in a friendship. And you can have different interests and do different things and still be friends with somebody. Yes, it makes it easier when you've got similar interests, but at the end of the day, you don't have to have constant overlapping interests. I've got most of my close friends don't prep. They might train, but they don't prep, or they don't prep frequently, or they're not in prep constantly. And they're not my clients either. So most of my close friends actually live a fairly different lifestyle to me, but we come together in the middle and we have a good time. FOMO can represent the clashing desire to literally want to experience and immerse yourself in everything all at once. And as romanticized as this can be, unfortunately, it is just not possible to simultaneously experience every single situation or scenario all at the same time. It's like you can't do everything all at once, and you can't expect yourself to be able to do that either. There will be things that you need to miss out on in life in order to go through with other experiences, right? So to succeed with some experiences, to build your business and your career, you might need to avoid traveling. You might be able to do it at the same time, sure. But to be able to buy a house, you're probably going to have to stop spending so much money, right? You're probably going to have to pull back the spending and maybe not go out partying every weekend. So there will be sacrifices that you need to make to get to any one of your goals. And you can't get to all of them at the same time poorly, because it just doesn't happen like that. It's like trying to extend out your arms when you've only got two. You can't possibly achieve multiple things at a time, especially if they are incredibly conflicting and they require sacrifices from one another. So you need to figure out what you actually want to do, and then get over the fact that you're going to have to miss out on some of the other things that you may have enjoyed in life, maybe temporarily, maybe you can go back to them, but there has to be that shift in focus. So on that note, for example, you might want to do a bodybuilding show. You'll need to miss out on eating foods, as I mentioned earlier, at some social events, including Christmases, birthdays, and anniversaries. These come around every single year, and when people get mad about missing out on these events, I often think to myself, you'd probably rather do those events than do prep. Don't prep. If you want to go on that holiday, don't prep. Just go on the holiday, enjoy the holiday, but don't try to pursue two completely conflicting goals and make them work, because you'll do them both really poorly. You'll have a really shit time of your holiday because you feel like you have to restrict yourself, or you'll have a really shit prep because you'll end up maybe not being quite on track on your holiday. You cannot have the best of both worlds all of the time, especially when they conflict. So that leads me to my next point. How do we tackle FOMO, and what's the best way to ensure that you can keep these invasive feelings at bay? Very similar to adopting the style and the mindset required to stop comparing yourself to others, it's suggested to be grateful for everything that you do and have in your life, right? And that you're currently doing in your life, including available people that you have to you in your support network, your friends, and of course your colleagues. The people that mean the most to you, those who are kind and supportive of your goals and your future. Making a physical written gratitude list can often really help with this process, because it can support the idea that you're actually plentiful in your life instead of coming from a place of scarcity, okay? So, often I can hear that people say things like, "Oh, I don't have enough money," or "I don't have this," or "I don't have that," or "I'm not doing this," or "I feel like I'm not good enough about this." And it just kind of rolls off the tongue. It's like everything it comes from a place of I'm hard done by. If you've ever listened to my story about things that have happened in my life, right? The chronic illnesses that I've had and all that type of stuff, and going through my childhood like I did, and the DV relationship and all that crap, right? I used to look at my life from a place of scarcity. It was constantly, I don't have anything, I'm not good enough, and I don't have everything I want, and woe is me, right? That can definitely feed into itself, because much of that then means that we sit in that mindset and we don't actually think about what we do have or the opportunities and the choices that we do have. Like focusing on what you can do. Notice there is a common theme in every one of my podcasts, which isn't, falling back into these habits of my life is shit, everything is shit, my choices are shit, and I'm boxed in and I can't do anything about that. People have taken themselves from one of the worst places or some of the worst places in their lives to wonderful places, and it's not magical. It's not some sort of, no one gets a handout, and even if they do, they still have to be responsible with it. This is about gratitude. If you need to write the lists down, being thankful for the things you've achieved, everything that you've done in your life, whether it be possessions. If you're proud of your car, if you're proud of your house, that's fine, that's okay. Or more importantly, celebrating those that you surround yourself with, the good people in your life, not taking them for granted. You might literally be looking past somebody in your life who is just wonderful, but you're so focused on, I have all this bad shit happening to me, that you can't actually see what you do have. The experiences you've taken yourself through in your life, this might look like making, as I said, this daily list, if you need to, that you are grateful for, all the things you're grateful for in a day. Give yourself maybe 5 things to list at the start or end of the day, especially if you really struggle with doing this. It doesn't have to be complex, but at least it has to be something that you get into the practice of doing daily, or perhaps verbalizing with somebody that you care about. So practicing mindfulness and living in the moment is another method. It sounds incredibly cliche, but it can be very helpful for reigniting your love affair with your own life. To prevent yourself from getting tied up in what ifs, and you need to practice sitting down, enjoying exactly where you are right now, okay? You might even look around the room or look outside and notice small things that you're happy with, okay, that give you joy. Things that you're experiencing in this moment, in this day, this week, this month, and this year. It could even be things like celebrating listening to your favorite music, or having one of your favorite treats for the day, being able to wash your hair, but literally just celebrating small things, which then don't make you feel like you're consumed by this, dark hole of, I don't have anything good in my life because I see everything that everyone else is doing that's wonderful. So also it might look like celebrating the direction that you're heading in, okay? Everything that you're currently doing to get there. It might feel like you are just wading water. It might feel like you are floating, that you're not actually going anywhere. But it's interesting, you must often look back from where you came in order to understand that where you are right now is a huge development. And if you keep going, your track record in the past of applying yourself to things, if you just keep going, you will end up succeeding. You will end up where you want to be. Mindfulness can often look like deep breathing. Really noticing things like sounds and smells that you enjoy. Maybe you've got a pet, giving them a cuddle, relishing in the small moments, like your favorite coffee or the smell of your favorite perfume. Okay? Celebrating the idea that you already have many of the wonderful things that you need and want in your life right here and right now. Often when you are committing yourself to a career or a big life change, you might miss out on other experiences. I've said this, right? It's normal. But in the long run, this will obviously benefit your goals and your future. Sometimes being grateful for what you've been doing towards, right, your ultimate goal, your big goal, can help you remember why you're pursuing it, and not just chasing other short-lived bouts of happiness from other people's journeys or lives. It's literally like taking somebody else's snapshot, a photo from somebody else's album, and then trying to replicate it. It's not necessary. Stay on your path and put the hard work into things that you really want instead of deviating constantly to find things that you're just afraid of not doing, afraid of missing out on. To prevent yourself from feeding the FOMO monster, continue to consider your long-term goals, right? The difficulty and hardship that is required and that you're facing, which will lead you to where you want to be in the months and years ahead. Think of another time that you've done this, where you have just persevered, even though it sucked, even although there were times in that situation where you felt like you didn't have a lot to look forward to. At the end of the day, if you are working towards a bigger goal, that's the thing you've got to look forward to, and the sacrifices you're making now will be worth it. So, you may find yourself experiencing feelings of FOMO when perhaps others in your life might be purposefully, or at least seem as though they are maybe rubbing it in your face all the time, and that they're having all this fun without you. So this is probably quite common and something that, I guess a lot of people probably don't think about, is that if you've got people in your life that tend to do that, to go, I'm doing all these fun, awesome things all the time, and they don't often talk about their struggles or things that they're not doing well with, or even be transparent about that, this can often really encourage this idea of FOMO. It's like, people need to practice being human, sure. And I try to do this as often as possible in podcasts, being like, hey, I have bad days. I'm disorganized sometimes. I'm organized most of the time. But everybody has shitty days. Everybody has shitty experiences. There are some people who try to keep up this facade and often will use it as like a manipulation tool to hoard and hold over people. So it's like, I've got all these amazing, awesome things and I'm better than you, and you should be doing what I'm doing and you shouldn't be doing what you're doing, because this is often almost like a form of bullying, really. So if they are doing that, you can feel it, it's just constant, honestly, the biggest thing you can do, or the easiest thing you can do, is just distance yourself from them. People think that they can't distance themselves from family members or friends. You have a block button. You don't live, hopefully you don't live next to them. If you do, move. It's actually a lot simpler. It's difficult to execute, but a lot simpler than you'd realize. Getting rid of these shitty people who seem to just make you feel, and I wouldn't say make you feel, but seem to purposefully stir up these feelings and maybe even do things constantly to push on you this idea that their life is perfect and yours isn't. You don't have to be around them all the time, okay? Unless they want to help you get there, I don't see what the point is in people being really in your face about it. I try to kind of do a little bit of both. I try to celebrate my successes and go, hell yeah, this is awesome and I love doing this. But then also in the same breath, practice transparency with people and say, what, this was really fucking hard. And, emotionally, there are lots of things I've been through and I still go through, right? So it's important to prevent FOMO from the other side, is to not pressure other people, is to not rub it in other people's faces that your life is perfect, and certainly not try and run with that narrative. There is a big difference between people celebrating their own happiness and success and what may look like that same person potentially trying to taunt you, okay? We need to be careful with who we surround ourselves with. If you find that you have one particular friend or family member that just continuously finds a way to put you down, in order to kind of put themselves up and above you, whatever it is in relation to your life, if they're not finding a positive way to support you, but they are comparing their life to yours and almost it's like a competition, again, you don't need to have these people in your life. If it's constant and it's not going away, if you've had this discussion with them and said, hey, look, I'm happy doing what I'm doing and I don't need to be doing what you're doing. I'm happy for your happiness. And that's really awesome. I'm so impressed. Practice that. Practice just being happy for their happiness, but certainly tell them, if they are pressuring you, hey, I don't need to do what you're doing. Thanks, but I'm okay doing what I'm doing. And if they continue to do this, if they continue to practice in this way, where they are taunting you, where they seem to be trying to almost pull jealousy out of you, even though you're not typically a jealous person, again, you can lessen the time that you spend around these people. So these people are generally as well usually very skeptical of things that make you happy. Okay, so no matter what you come to them with and say, look, I'm happy doing this, they seem to be like, oh, no, that can be dangerous, or I don't know, you shouldn't try that. And they always seem to almost like when you tell them you're doing something awesome with your life, they just want to compete with you and say that they're doing something awesome as well. This can happen quite commonly between people where you might be sharing positive experiences, but certainly it's usually if the experience is opposing or if the person already feels jealous of what you're doing, they might then try and compete with you. So it does very quickly, this idea of thinking that you're missing out on what somebody else is doing in their life or achieving in their life can very quickly turn into a bit of a competition, a subconscious competition. So, and often it's sometimes as well, it's weird, but it kind of feeds this complex that might make you feel like you're missing out on experiencing their lifestyle choices, even though it wasn't originally what you wanted to do in the first place with your life. So you often can get FOMO from people who will overtly try and shove their life in your face, and they wait for your reaction almost, if it's a one-on-one situation usually. And you will have these, feelings of, should I be doing that? You feel a bit guilty for what you're doing currently. And it's like, if you're questioning yourself and the other person is questioning you as well very openly, they are not supportive of you, and they are not somebody that you should really stick around and have, hang around in life, because it can often just have, you can have this kind of complex where you feel like you're constantly sitting beneath them no matter what choices you make in life. So you can even obviously try communicating with the people in your life, everybody in your life, that you're content with where you are and where you're headed to. And obviously, practice being vocal with the people that you care about and trust what you're doing in your life and what you intend to do. Something I got into practice of doing recently was vocalizing less of what I'm doing, especially if it's big plans and things that I've actually, weirdly enough, now execute more effectively if I don't tell these people. Specific people in my life, I just don't tell. I don't tell them. The second that they do find out is generally because I've announced it and it's happened, or that I just message them and say, hey, by the way, I did that thing. Because more often than not, if you do constantly announce things to people who will often try and sabotage, if it is the same person over and over again, it might be that you want to compete and they might want to get in your head and start to kind of wear you down a little bit before you've even tried. Sometimes it just helps to know and really pick up who those people are and then go, well, you know what, now I don't have to have these conversations with you. And it can be far more beneficial for your mental health and for your goals when you clear your mind of all of that and you allow yourself to just simply do what you want to do because you want to do it. So a major pillar of preventing FOMO really relies on accepting and embracing your own individualism, okay? Your own choices, your own goals, and your own experiences in life. But you do not need to be doing anything other than what you are choosing to do right now, and pivoting constantly will only send you in circles. It's okay to be traveling currently and not focusing on your career. It's okay to be working on your career and not traveling currently. It's also okay to be trying to do both at the same time, and that's pretty fucking cool if you can. It is also completely okay to be doing none of those things and to be choosing to do something else in your life that is non-related, maybe because you've got a different set of circumstances and that's what you need to do. But you do not need to be doing what other people are doing in order to experience your own version of success and happiness, okay? There is no rule book for it. There's no rule book written to define what your success and happiness and certainly the longevity of your happiness looks like. There are people who live out in the forest and live off the land, don't even have a job. They might literally just grow their own food and they're freaking happy. Right? That's their choice. That's what makes them happy. It's not what makes their neighbor happy. It's not what makes, their old boss happy, or it's not what makes their cousin happy. It's what makes them happy. So this can only be defined by you and not by the images or the videos on the internet of strangers, let alone those in your life who may have chosen a different path or experience to you. Your happiness, your success, your joy, your choices in life should not be shifted and changed by anyone other than you. And that can be a really difficult process to hone in on. How to do that without getting distracted by what everyone else is doing. The FOMO feeling often probably sits with this idea that you might just want to be following the crowd constantly instead of thinking about what this person wants, right? What you want, what Mariah wants, what whoever the hell you are wants. So as I mentioned, there's no rule book written for success. It is not defined by the picture perfect snapshot that you see on social media. I know it sounds cliche, but the stories people tell us as well, even in person, about their own joy and happiness, Sometimes they leave out the parts that, I had a breakdown or I had a car accident that day, even though I, had great success with something else, I really struggled. So remember that people will also filter the stories they tell you. People will always distort and change the stories they tell you, because a lot of people really struggle practicing being vulnerable and human because they think it makes them flawed. Okay, so just remember that. You do not need to live your life exactly the same way that anyone else does, and you can be happy for others. Their happiness can be separate to your happiness, and you can experience it completely separately and be happy for one another. That's kind of how friendships and relationships and family connections work. Remember that it is completely okay for somebody else to experience euphoria and happiness in their life. Doing something that has nothing to do with you and that you are not participating in, okay? So basically, it's okay for a loved one, a friend or a family member to have joy and let them have it. Let people be happy and content. If they are just being happy and content, it's not hurting anybody, and they're just yee-hawing, and they're not a person who does that constantly and then just doesn't say, I've had a shit day, or maybe might actually be quite honest with you about their lives. If this person is doing the constant yee-hawing, you can guarantee there's something else going on, okay? But if they are excited and happy and they're experiencing euphoria, please don't take away from that. Okay, one thing that I try not to do is, if somebody's experiencing happiness and joy that is separate to me and something that I can't currently achieve, or I'm not currently achieving, or I'm not currently doing, I actually practice really seeing it from their perspective and understanding that it's okay for me to not be them and be doing what they're doing, because someone else's happiness is wonderful. It really is. If you see couples in love on Valentine's Day, practice being kind, okay? If you see single people stoked to be single and not be in relationships, go, hell yeah, girl, like, I love that for you. Hell yeah, you're enjoying and discovering yourself. Like, it's okay to not be doing and not feel like you have to be doing what everyone else is doing. It's actually okay to be doing the complete opposite of what someone else is doing, because it's what you want to be doing. So finally, to finish up, often simply practicing being happy, as I mentioned, for somebody else's expressed happiness can set you free from the fear of missing out. Really, that's it. It's just like, hell yeah, that's cool. Look at that. That's talent. I like that. I often watch skipping videos on Instagram or wherever I end up finding them of trick skippers. I love trick skipping. Now, I can skip probably not as well as most of the trick skippers, but I love skipping. I still get a lot of joy out of watching trick skippers, not because I'm like, oh, I wish I was as good as them, because I think it's really cool and awesome and entertaining and fun. I don't then think to myself, I have to become a champion trick skipper. If you want to do that, go ahead, but it doesn't come from, and it shouldn't come from, a position of, I wish I was doing what they're doing because their life looks fun and awesome and mine isn't as fun and awesome as theirs. So obviously this may also, if you do get into the practice of being happy for other people's happiness, it may prevent you from subconsciously pressuring this person to try to follow the lifestyle and decisions and values that you have. So it's weird, but if you actually start just accepting and being okay with all of us being weird and different and wonderful and brilliant and individual in our own ways, as well as your own individualism, you'll find that you then don't subconsciously try to push people into your lifestyle. I really don't push people into fitness and nutrition. If you're listening to my podcast, you obviously are interested in it, but I'm not getting in here going, hey, you need to start tracking your macros today or you're a shit person. I don't pressure anybody to do what I'm doing, right? I'm like, hey, it always finishes with, hey, do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy and healthy. Do what comes right to you. Do what comes naturally to you. It is a shift away from everyone should be like me or I should be like everybody else, to everybody's allowed to be exactly how they want to be, and I'm going to be happy for those people and I'm going to be happy for myself. If you're constantly dissatisfied and yearning for something else, you will truly never know what it's like to actually be happy. If you want to experience happiness, it's here, right? It's in the books that you read, it is in the food that you eat, it is in the conversations that you have daily, it's the music you listen to, it's the thoughts that you give yourself. It is the decisions that you make towards a life that you want. It is the hard decisions that you often have to make towards a life that you want. But happiness is a choice. It really is. You're going to go through struggles. People will struggle with depression, anxiety. They're going to have lots of, and we have more mental health struggles now more than ever. And it's interesting, but one of the ways to battle mental health struggles is through altruism, is to actually care about other people and be happy for other people. Because then you honestly, you really do let go of those intense feelings of hatred, sadness, resentment, and all that you have is joy and happiness for yourself. Yes, you'll have struggle there, but you replace a lot of these really unnecessary feelings of jealousy, feelings of missing out, etc., bitterness. I use bitterness quite a lot because FOMO is very closely related to that. With my life is good. There are amazing parts of my life. Yeah, there's some hard parts, but I'm going to work on those. I'm going to work on what I can work on. And obviously, the world is your oyster. It is important to stay true to the moments, experiences, your circle, no matter how big or how small that is, and your pursuit that you want to actually achieve for yourself. You do not need the acceptance of random people or anyone for that matter, even people close to you. You don't need their acceptance, okay? You don't need the social status. You don't need, the whole concept of keeping up with the Joneses to feel whole and to appreciate all that your life and your path has to offer. Let go of that and you will enjoy every part of your life now until the future, as long as you're pursuing what you truly want for you. And of course, you're going to have to consider people you care about along the way. That's important. But just knowing that you're doing your best and that you do not need to do other things or achieve other things that you aren't currently doing in order to feel like you are accomplished, okay? Happiness is a choice, a feeling of appreciation for where you are right here and now, for who and what you do have. I stand by that statement, and I wish that I had have really thought about this a lot more when I was younger, that I could choose to walk away from shit people, shit situations, maybe shit people for me, maybe they're good for other people, but I wish I had told myself or had someone tell me when I was younger, you can choose to stop drinking, you can choose to stop smoking, you can choose to treat yourself well, you can choose to just eat a little bit more today, even though you're scared, just a little bit more. I wish someone had told me and been gentle with me in that process, because I had to find that myself. But we all do. We all have to find the choice towards happiness ourselves. You don't have to be happy all the time, but to be happy at any given point in time, you will need to choose to be happy. It's a feeling of appreciation, as I mentioned, for who and what you do have. Not for what you don't, not for what you haven't done, and obviously for where you haven't been. So that's it from me, finishing right up on the hour for this vlog and podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this one today. It's no coincidence that there is a common theme across my podcasts, and if you don't like it, you don't have to listen to them. It's okay. I'm not forcing you to listen to the podcasts. I hope your life is getting a little bit better. I hope that from listening to these, that you are starting to understand what it looks like to succeed, be happy, to feel fulfilled, and to start to break down those issues and certainly struggles that might be nutrition, fitness related for sure, but even just in general, who you are, finding out who you are. Thanks a lot. Looking forward to doing another vlog for you soon.